Welcome back to Podcast Recovery. We are your hosts, David O. and Eric V. Podcast Recovery is a forerunner in digitally accessible addiction recovery support. We provide ease and convenience to any and all seeking a message of recovery and hope. By broadcasting the stories of recovering addicts, we act as a complement to all other recovery services. We exist to create a global foundation platform so that any addict may hear a message of strength and hope. We contribute education and awareness by highlighting the diversity in the lives of recovering addicts to show that one addict helping another truly works. Today, we're joined by our distinguished guest, Allison. How are you doing today?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. Where are you from?
I am from Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, nice. When were you first introduced to recovery?
Years ago, to the idea of it, but I wasn't open to the idea of recovery until about 8 years ago.
Nice. And how long have you been clean?
7 years. I'll have 8 years, God willing, in January.
Fantastic. That's awesome. And unless Eric has any other questions? No. Shaking his head no. And without further ado, I'll turn the meeting over to you and go.
Go for it. Okay. All right, so I guess where I'll start is where most people start, is like the why or the how, because I feel like for a lot of people, how did you use drugs, how did you get into that lifestyle is a question that is so not really talked about in the mainstream. I grew up in a loving household. My parents are still married. I went to private schools. I had a really good education, had a lot of played a lot of sports, did a lot of extracurricular activities. I was in a lot of choruses. I did gymnastics. I don't know. I never felt like it was enough. I never personally felt enough inside of me. So when I was about getting ready to go into high school, so I guess I was about 13, we moved, into it doesn't sound like such a big ordeal, but when you're that young and stuff starts to get out of your control and you don't have a say in anything, I internalized it and I was really angry and I started acting out. And, I was innocent at first. I started drinking Boone's Farm, cheap vodka that we could take from someone's parents.
Boxed wine. Nice.
Yeah. Well, it was more of Pavlov or Little Abner's. But, it started off, it was fun. And, it made me get outside of myself, and it made me not have to think about all the things that I was going through in life that I couldn't control. Fast forward a couple years being in that scene, you meet different types of people, and I'd met someone who was selling weed, and it quickly escalated into them selling coke and pills. I was about 16 at the time, and it was at first we weren't using them, but watching all these people use them and seeing how excited they were and all of just how much they wanted it and how much I guess I didn't realize that they needed it at the time. It looked fun. So one day we both decided that we were gonna, we had tried coke and stuff, and we decided we were gonna try these prescription pills that he was selling. And within probably a month, we were addicted to them. And that led to heroin. After a while, the pills got to be too much. They were hard to get because you had to know the right people. We live in the city of Baltimore, so heroin was readily available. The first time I was sick or ill from using, because I didn't have any, I didn't even realize that I was dope sick, quote unquote. I just thought I had the flu. So my friend, this guy I knew from high school, he calls me and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I told him I wasn't doing anything because I didn't feel well. And he started laughing and he said, "I know what can make you feel better." And, that thought kind of led me to the next, I don't even know, 10 years of my life, trying to get what I thought was going to make me feel better. And all it really did was just rob me of every single dream that I ever had, and made me do a lot of things that I would have never done had I have not started using. It made me lie to my family, steal from my family, lie to my jobs, steal from my jobs. I was irresponsible. I was unproductive. I was basically a menace menace to society. You know, I didn't know how to have friendships or interact with people on a basis other than using, or like interacting at work. You know, I just lived this like hollow existence of a human being. I was really sad and lonely, and it just got worse. You know, I decided that I was going to try to get clean my way. And my best thinking thought, you know, I'm going to get on a methadone program because that seemed like a really soft, easy way to fix my problem.
Yeah.
So I thought, and that just led to more drugs, you know, and more pain and more misery and more lies and more deception, more self-hatred, more anger, right? More fear of just the unknown, and I sunk deeper into the lifestyle, I guess, of like using. And
did the methadone ever like actually curb your craving for heroin?
I mean, for heroin, yes, but for using drugs and like that, like wanting something to get outside of myself, absolutely not. So what I did is that I substituted for other drugs. You know, it didn't, I would say maybe for like 2 weeks at most. Maybe I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like I can do this. I'm fine. You know, but because I wasn't like working on myself, or I wasn't like looking at my behaviors, you know, I went right back to what I knew, and I didn't change any of my friends.
Yeah. It sort of just became another one added into the mix.
Exactly. It was just another thing I had to do every day to be well, or to feel good, or to function. You know, it just was like another ball and chain that I put myself in. So I started using other drugs because I didn't really have like a network of people who were supporting me and telling me like, hey, you know, you don't have to live like that, or, you know, showing me other ways to live or other options, or like the love and support. Like I always had love and support from my family, but, you know, I always felt like they didn't understand where I was coming from. They didn't know what it felt like to be an addict and to be caught up and to be ill, or to, you know, not to feel how I felt, basically. So I just started using other drugs, and that, you know, led me down like a really dark path. I ended up like working down the block. I cut every single person that was healthy in my life out. I ran from every solid relationship that was based in love and compassion, and I just hated myself. And the bigger my hatred got for myself, the horrible the drugs became, like the worse they were. Like I just went to any length to get what I could get. And, you know, it didn't matter what I had to do or who I had to get over on. You know, I was just going to use no matter what. So what happened was, like, I found myself living, you know, I lived in someone's house. They took care of me. They paid for all the bills, paid for my food, my car. They did my laundry even, you know, like I would tell them like, this is what I want to eat this week. Yeah. And they would go out and buy it. And they made sure that I like had clean clothes to wear and that I had a place to go to. But, you know, obviously there was I was like portraying as if I cared about this person and that like there was like a future with us potentially, but like in my like heart and in my spirit, like I knew that I was only there for the convenience factor. And because I needed someone to take care of me at that time, because honestly, like I would have been homeless. I did not have any idea how to live. You know, my whole life, I went from basically like a high school student who barely passed, you know, I'm pretty sure they just passed me in high school because they just wanted to get rid of me. I'm pretty sure I didn't have enough science credits to graduate, but somehow I graduated with my class. But, you know, so I went from this like high school student who knew nothing about nothing to a 26-year-old person who had no life experience. So I needed someone to take care of me. You know, and I was working down at the block at this like shitty strip club, you know, that was basically just like a brothel. I don't even know if any, you know, it's all that was really going on. There was a lot of drugs and a lot of sex and a lot of corruption and just a lot of really fucked up shit. You know, all the fucked up shit that you see like and The Wire and all that stuff. Like, that is like Baltimore to a T.
Yeah.
So, and like I had like my drug dealer living with me because, I just needed to have what I needed all of the time. Like I had to have it there. I had to have it available. I could not wait because it would just I just couldn't. So I kind of created this like life or this like haven that I lived in where it was like I didn't have to go far to get what I needed. Maybe I had to go to work for a couple hours, but you lived with me so you could like come to my work. And, I just used. And, it's funny. I was talking about this earlier today, actually, with someone, like towards the ends of my using, like I always felt like if I had enough money, right? Like if I just had enough money, things would be okay. Or like if I just had enough drugs, things would be okay. So like here I was 26 years old and like I had enough money because the person that I was living with had come into some money and was more than happy to give me whatever I needed. I had enough drugs because, I had someone living with me that had an endless supply of what I wanted. I still wasn't enough, and I felt even more hollow and empty than I did in the beginning. And a miracle happened and I got arrested. I, at the time, was really upset.
Sounds so funny to say that.
I know, right? Like you would think that would be like a miracle, but to me, that moment saved my life. And some other small things had started happening, just some little minor coincidences that, like looking back, they all played a major part in like where I am today. But that drug dealer that I had living with me, he actually got arrested, and like he should have gotten he should have gotten out on his own recognizance. They had no he should have gotten a bail, right? But they wouldn't bail him. They put him no bail. So like he was kind of taken out of the picture, and then just like the house that I was living in and like the man that I was living with, it just became like more and more apparent that like I could not continue to do I just couldn't continue to live that lie. So when I did get arrested, it kind of made me sit still for a second, and I couldn't use. And that was the first time in probably like 2 or 3 years that I could not use without they had me shackled, and they put the like cuffs around my ankles, put the cuffs around my hand, and I had the big heavy chain that was like connecting them. And meanwhile, I'm like a girl from the county, so I'm like hysterically crying, and I was scared, and I was very concerned because I was on methadone, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be ill in this jail cell, and it's cold as shit in here, and I can't do this. It's like February or March, and I'm wearing like a wife beater, like a bra that's like hot pink, like ripped up jeans. The cop it was a male cop that arrested me, but he had to call a female cop to search me because I guess they can't touch your lady parts or whatever. So the female officer, and the cop was like, so he was really cool with me. He was not disrespectful, and he kept saying, as long as you don't have anything else on you, I'm going to let you go. And I thought, well, fuck, sweet, like story of my life. Because, I'd had interactions with the cops. I've gotten pulled over before, but I never really had any like consequences for my using. So I thought, shit, okay, I don't have anything else on me. I know that. So this cop's not going to find anything. So he's going to let me go. So the female cop's she's like a little, intimidating looking, and she pats me down. Like we're in a gas station, like we're in the parking lot of a gas station. This is all going down at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like in front of a pump, and this like the cop comes and she puts her hands, she's patting me down, and then she goes to put her hand in my pocket, right? She puts her hand in my pocket, and my whole pocket of my jean just rips completely off, and I'm wearing thongs. So it's like March. It's freezing cold outside. I'm so embarrassed because like my ass cheek is just like out for the world. And thank God that cop didn't let me go after she didn't find anything. He said something like, sweetie, I told you I'd let you go, but I have to process you, or something along those lines. And there was like a piece of my soul that was just like, thank you, like just thank God. You're just like grateful, because I needed someone to
save you from yourself.
Exactly, to not let me go back to what I was doing, at least for like an hour or two, just to get a little moment of clarity. And that's exactly what I got, sitting in a nice Howard County jail cell, I just, I had a moment of clarity, and I'd love to say, yeah, and I left that place and I never used again, and I have had a successful life since, but that is not what happened. I'm an addict, and I had to go out and get some more pain, and I didn't have any tools at that time, but I did have a little bit of fear, so I decided to, try and get help, and that's kind of what put me on the path to where I am today. I was no stranger to like rehabs or detoxes or methadone clinics. I'd been to quite a few of them at this point, but like I was scared, and I lived in fear of having to kick the methadone that I was on, because at this point I was on an extremely high dose. So I was taking like 160 milligrams a day, which at this point I'm like, I weighed like 100 pounds soaking wet. I'm a very petite person to begin with, so I can only imagine like how my body was processing all of that medication. But I was so scared of having to go through withdrawals in jail, because of course, the cop, he was very nice, but like some of the charges that he came back with were completely absurd. Yeah. So they watched me serve someone crack, basically, and I didn't realize that there's crack laws. I did not realize that there are specific laws based for that kind of substance. So they were like saying some crazy shit. So of course I called a lawyer, and he was like, well, it would probably be in your best interest to go to rehab. So I kind of like went to rehab again, like on the oh shit, let's just kind of save my ass real quick, and not jackpot. Really, yeah, exactly, and like not really trying to change or like do anything, but I just like didn't want to have to kick all that meth in like a jail cell, because I'd heard people like when you're out on the street, we talk, and like you hear people's war stories. It's almost like we wear them like a badge of honor.
Oh yeah, it gives you street cred.
Yeah, so like I had heard people like talk about like having to kick in like a cement jail cell, and I was like, no, like I'm a girl from the county, like I'm not about that. So I decided to check into another facility just like to kind of save my ass, and like something happened there that kind of saved my life. I wish I could say like the exact moment, or something was said, or something was like felt, or I don't know, but just the whole experience just kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of recovery, because up until that point, like recovery was not an option. I knew of programs, I knew of solutions, I knew of people who had used and maybe didn't use anymore, or like they seemed to have their lives like it seemed okay. I knew that, it was maybe an option, but I didn't feel like in my heart it was for me. I felt like I had completely destroyed my life to a point where, there was no coming back from it. Like, this was like, I was set out on this mission, and I was like going to take it to the end. And so by the time I ended up in that like facility, I don't know, like there wasn't a lot of hope. There wasn't a lot of hope left in my heart. And, but like, I guess you could say I was desperate to try something different. Yeah. So I listened, I shut my mouth and I listened, and I started to get a little bit of hope, a little bit of faith, believe in myself a little bit more. One of the things that really stood out is that like somebody in that, facility that I went to, they saw something in me that like, I guess I hadn't seen in myself in years. And they saw like that human side of me that I had like completely disconnected with while I was using, cause like who I really am and who I am when I use are two totally different people. I like no emotion, no regard for anybody else. I give no fucks about you or like who you, like anything. Like, I just don't care. Like, do you have what I want? How much is it? What do I got to do to get it? Those are the only things that mattered. How much? So this person, like they saw something in me, and they used to make me like stand in the mirror and like look at myself, which is something that like I had not done. I used to like look in the mirror when I was using, but it was always like my false ego, or like I had that mask on of like who I thought I was. Like I thought I was like this cool stripper chick who like, like I don't even know what I thought, but I thought I was just like better than everybody else, right? Like I thought even though my life was complete shit and that I had nothing to show for anything, I still felt like I was better than everybody else. Probably because I used to surround myself around people that were worse off than I was. But so he used
That's always a good way to do it.
Right, yeah. So I need you to compare. I need you to be around so I can compare myself to you.
It's like a Superman complex by default.
It is, right? Yeah. And I was like really good for that. And I was, I'm not going to get into that. It's a different topic. But, he used to make me look at myself in the mirror, and he used to make me say like, I'm worth it. I can do this. I deserve this. And like, I'm well enough just thinking about that, because those were thoughts that I had probably never had, maybe as like a child, like maybe walking through some fears as a kid, but I mean, I used hard for like 10 years. So those like thoughts were completely foreign to me. And I hated him at first, and I'd be like, this motherfucker, who does he think he is? What a fucking dick. Like I hated him, but towards the end of it, I kind of saw what he was doing. And it really helped me connect with who I am, who I was before the drugs, because it's really, it really is two different people, and I completely forgot who I was before the drugs. Because even before like the smoking weed and before like the drinking the Boone's Farm, I was a kid, I was a child, and I wanted to be grown so bad that I lied to myself and told myself that I was. So I never really got to figure out who I was without drugs. And recovery has kind of given me the ability to do that. I guess I'll like fast forward now to recovery. So, I decided to make some life changes when I left that facility. And, at first I was unwilling, and I didn't want to make any changes, and I used, and I ended up right back where I was. And, it didn't take me long, thank God, to like have a light bulb go off and be like, okay, I don't think this is going to work, and so I need to change something. Cause if not, I knew I was going to die. I just knew it. It was like the only thing left. I mean, I had like OD'd plenty of times before. I had friends leave me in like the Russell Street bathroom, gas station. Oh yeah. Like it was bad. Like my using was like not fun, but like I would pretend like it was this glamorous thing. And, so I knew in my heart that, I was going to die if I didn't stop. And, that place gave me hope. And I was holding on to that little bit of hope that maybe my life isn't so fucked up that I can like still make something out of it. And, I decided to start making changes, and I changed where I lived. I didn't obviously go back to where I worked, because that wouldn't have been very healthy. And that was really funny too. I was thinking about it the other day. My last day down there, I had never, I was the type of girl that like, I never told you when I was leaving. I just kind of left. Like even like when I hung up the phone, like when I was having a conversation with you, I just kind of hung up. I wasn't like, I wasn't good at goodbye ever. So, but when I like went into the place I worked at the last time I worked there, it was a good night. I'm not gonna lie, it was a good night. I made fucking good money. And at the end of the night, I just like was standing next to the owner, and like we were talking about something, and I looked at him and I said, hey, like I got to do something with my life, because if not, I'm going to die. And I need you to, if I come back down here, please don't let me work here. And I had left because the place that I worked at, people could buy you out. Yes, that is a thing. You could buy out a human from the place that you worked at. So someone had bought me out, and I had came back at the end of the night because I had to go back to get paid. And that's when I was talking to him, and he looked at me and he was like, I think you're actually going to be one of the ones that are okay, the ones that are going to make it out of here. And at first I was like, because there is not many, there's not. If as long as there's someone to enable us, we will stay out there, but he actually followed me home that night, and I was really creeped out at first, but he said, oh, I shorted you. I forgot to give you like $40 or something stupid. I'm like, oh, okay. And I think honestly, he just just knew that it was going to be the last time he ever saw me,
Yeah.
you know, and he just didn't want to like let go, or maybe he just, I don't know, but it was, and like, and I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway, so I made changes. You know, I said I was not going to go back down there, and I did not go back down there. I said I wasn't going to go back to that place that I lived at, and I didn't go back to that place that I lived at. I decided to ask my parents if I could move back in with them for a brief period of time, and they agreed, but they said, you know, I had to not talk to certain people, and I had to show them that I was like willing to do something different. So I made new friends. You know, I started like a network of people that like believed in me and had been where I had been and could share their experience with me, their strength, their hope. If they hadn't gone through something, they could steer me in the direction of somebody that had. You know, I started going to meetings. I started looking at myself in ways that up until that point were completely not an option. You know, and I started getting vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
And I got outside of my comfort zone, and I did a bunch of things that I didn't necessarily want to do, but I knew that my life depended on it. And
how hard was it, like, sort of being like a badass street chick at the time and having to come into a place and ask for help?
I mean, it was humbling. It was intimidating because I was more inclined to ask men for help than women.
Yeah.
You know, I had no problem asking that guy to help me out with something. And then also like learning that I didn't need to give someone something in order for them to help me. You know, like that lifestyle when we use is like tit for tat, and everything's very like, I'll do this, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine, you know. And when I started going to meetings and started meeting people who like wanted to help me, I had to like learn the concept that like they don't want anything from me in return. That's not to say that some of them might not have taken it or like had hidden motives, but you know, like just letting them help me like was an ordeal in itself, because you know, I wanted to act as if I was okay. I wanted to act as if I wasn't dying on the inside. I wanted to act as if I didn't have any emotions and that I didn't like have all of these insecurities and these fears. And I definitely wanted to act as if I wasn't on methadone, because at that point, I wasn't sure if I was willing or able, not so much willing, but able to come off of it. You know, because I had never heard of someone. The only time I'd heard of people coming off of methadone was when they went to prison, or like if they got kicked off the detox and then they just went right back up to like shooting up or like using something else. You know, so that was like not something that I thought was an option. So yeah, it was hard, but trying to find ways and means to use every day was like just as hard. So I just took all of that like energy that I would put into using into, you know, trying to find a new way to live. And I mean, I had to do a lot of shit that I did not want to do to continue to use drugs every single day, and to use how like I wanted to use them, you know, which was every second. So I just kind of kept reminding myself of that, and I just kept saying like nothing can be as worse as that, because you know, I had to do a lot of things that I didn't want to do, a lot of things that I carried a lot of guilt and shame for years. So like asking people for help, at first they didn't really ask, but you know, I looked broken enough to where people knew. Like, I mean, it was written all over my face. So, you know, people were gracious enough to come up to me and kind of just start conversations and all of that. So yeah, so
walking into a meeting with a broken heel will generally do that. Yeah.
That and also some of the attire that I would wear to the meetings, it was definitely apparent.
You were Jenny from the block.
I needed a lot of help. So it was very humbling, to say the least, but it was also refreshing because, you know, I started to like believe that people could help me. Right. And like, maybe I could help myself, because I always put everything on you. So when I like started like going to meetings and I was like, okay, who in here is going to fix me? Who in here is going to like tell me the magical solution to my problems? And I didn't know that like I had to find them for myself. I mean, obviously people can guide me along the way, but like nobody can, it's like recovery is not like this like magical gift that you receive from somebody else. It's a lot of like hard work and dedication and looking at yourself over and over and over again, and doing a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily do. I mean, I don't even think a lot of average normal people do a lot of the things that people in recovery do. You know, we look at aspects of ourselves that most people wouldn't even acknowledge that they have. So I know the recovery has just been like amazing. You know, I realized really quickly that I was able to recover, and that it was possible for me because I saw a lot of people who had like more clean time than I had been alive. And their stories were the exact same as mine. I mean, maybe not the exact same, but like that pain and like that desperation. The feelings were like the same across the board, you know, whether it's male, female, black, white, Asian. I mean, it just didn't matter. Like gay, straight, Catholic, you know, atheist, like those feelings were just like the same across the table. And I could really identify with those. And, you know, I kept telling myself, well, shit, if they did it, I can do it. And it was kind of like 6 months into me, like going to meetings and, you know, not using and not beating myself up every day and not living in constant fear of, I don't even know what, you know, just like fear of everything and self-doubt, that I decided that, hey, maybe I can get off of methadone. Maybe I can, you know, be completely drug-free, because I hadn't been drug-free for a long time, and I didn't think that it was an option. I thought, I kind of accepted, I would say when I was like 18, I thought, well, fuck, I'm just going to be one of those people that like, I need something. I'm going to have to take something for the rest of my life just to feel normal. So to have even that thought was like completely mind-boggling to me. And to believe it was like, I mean, even more crazy. But, you know, I was determined. I mean, I'm an addict, so I'm like, shit, I get an idea, I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to see it to the bitter end, you know, good or bad. I've just learned how to like take the good or take the bad, remove it, and like apply it only to the good. But which not all the time. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I decided that I was going to get off of it, and I went through a long detox period of about 6 months of, you know, coming down slowly. I did like a blind detox. I did a lot of research. I'm a nerd, so I like to know what I'm getting myself into. So I did a lot of research. I know way too much about methadone.
Google magic.
Yeah, right. But I did read some really interesting studies, and it said that it takes a week for your body to register any type of change that would happen if you were coming off of it. So that's why a lot of times when you do a detox, a rapid detox, you come down like 5 milligrams a day. So I decided, wow, like, you know, rapid isn't the way to go. I'm going to try to come down like 5 milligrams to 2 milligrams, like a week. And I decided that it's like not a race, you know, it's just, it's like a lifestyle. So I had to like be in it for the long haul. And I mean, it took me 6 months to completely come down.
And you did that all yourself?
Yes. Well, I mean, I did it, the facility that I was going to, or the whatever, like clinic, I guess we'll say, because that's what they're called. The methadone clinic I went to, only one person was on board with me coming off of it. That was my counselor. And she believed that she had seen me really fucked up. So like she had seen me for 6 months, not coming in there completely wasted, drunk at like 6 o'clock in the morning to, you know, get my dose of methadone. So she was like, wait, maybe this girl is doing something different here. So she was on my side, and her and we went to the doctor, and the doctor, even though he kept saying, I don't agree with this, and you have your life together, it seems like you're doing a little bit better. You know, I don't know why you'd want to change that. Tried to like, you know, get me off feared up again, but like I had her in my corner, and that's when we decided I was going to do the detox, and I came off of it, and I have not used a substance of any kind since that day, and that was January 11th, 2011. So I mean, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
Even like that last day, you know, I said the most profound thing I probably had ever said in my life, and I believed it with all my heart. I went in there, they like, even you get towards the end of it, they really water it down, and it's almost just like that you're like telling your head, like, okay, this is going to make me better.
Placebo.
Like, yeah, exactly. It's the total placebo effect. Like, there was probably nothing even in it. I mean, for all I know, they probably put like a drop of something in there just to give it some color. But the nurse comes, and every day they'd ask me, hey, how are you doing? You know, are you ready? That was like such an awesome question. Are you ready? And, you know, some days I'd be like, no, I don't think I'm ready. But like January 11th, 2011, I walked in there and they said, hey, how are you doing? And I said, you know, I'm okay. And they said, are you ready? Do you need your dose? And I said, no, you know what? I think I'm going to be okay. And they all just kind of looked at me. It was almost this like moment of just like, holy shit, this is it. This is the end. And like, when I said, no, I think I'm going to be okay, you know, like for the first time in a really long time, like I actually believed what I had just said. So I left, and, you know, I left and I went to a meeting, and, you know, I don't think I shared about it because a lot of people didn't know about it. And I was scared to tell people I was on it because I didn't want to be judged because, you know, I still lived in fear at that time, but I told my family, and, you know, I knew, and that was all that really like needed. You know, I didn't need the whole world to know. I didn't need like everybody to know. I knew in my heart that I was going to be okay. And, that was freedom. You know, that was like freedom from active addiction. That was an experience that I had never, ever felt before. Like it was just like the world just like opened up, you know, and like the possibilities were endless. And, you know, I haven't.
How long did that pink cloud last?
Oh, like a day. Because then after, they don't tell you about the weird side effects you're going to have. Like you're not going to be able to sleep for like 6 months, you know, or like they don't tell you you're going to sweat like a, you know, like crazy.
Buckets,
yeah. In the middle of winter. They don't tell you that shit. But I just kept saying, you know, this isn't forever. This isn't forever. It'll go away. And it has. I mean, and some nights I still struggle with sleeping, but I think that's more or less like my personality. Then I'm a night owl, and I'm okay with it. So yeah, but I like kept going to meetings. I started looking at myself and started answering questions about myself that were like really eye-opening. And I started like giving back, you know, I became like a productive member of society, and I started going to school, and I remember that I liked school, and then I was a dork, and I started setting goals for myself. You know, I haven't found the need to use. You know, I definitely had some like uncomfortable feelings, and I've had life show up, but like using a drug to deal with whatever life has to throw at me, it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. You know, even with like the bullshit of like how marijuana, like you can buy it like in a store, you know, like even that, like sometimes if I think about it, I'm like, motherfucker, like I missed the boat on that shit, you know, but like honestly, like no, like I have this life beyond my wildest dreams, and like I am content with who I am without using like anything to change how I feel. Yeah. And that's something that I never thought I'd ever have, you know, working in a shitty strip club, just, you know, doing whatever I could to get one more. And like now, you know, having the freedom to like choose what I'm going to do with my life, and, you know, where I'm going to go and who I'm going to associate with, and like the possibilities that I see now. I mean, it's crazy because they were always there. You know, I just didn't think that they were for me, if that makes sense. I didn't think that they were like an option for me. I felt like I was dealt the shitty hand, and like I should have just folded a long time ago.
Woe is me.
Yeah, right? Yeah. The victim. Oh my God, why is this happening to me? What, like, woe is me. Just, and today, like, I will no longer be a victim. You know, I'm not going to live in that mindset. I don't have to live like that anymore.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. Anything else?
You know,
anything you want to say to the viewers? our listeners?
If you're struggling and if you think that like you can't do this, you absolutely can, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. And that's exactly what I used to tell myself when I felt like when I felt like life got too much or too heavy, or when I felt like I wasn't worth it. You are worth it, and you are loved, and you can like have a life beyond your wildest dreams. I mean, if I can, you can. Just give yourself a break. Just for today, don't pick up, and it won't get in you.
Yep.
It was such a foreign concept for me for a really long time, but I don't have to put something in me to feel good about who I am today, and I don't have to have somebody else take care of me. And if you want freedom from whatever it is you're going through, because like addiction can be anything. It can be eating, it can be gossiping, it can be, lying, it can be cutting, right? It could just be anything to like get you outside of yourself. And, you can have freedom from whatever you want as long as you're willing to do a little bit of work. So I think that's like all I got. I don't know how long I've talked for, but
almost 40 minutes.
Damn.
Impressive.
I am, it's pretty impressive.
Turn it over to Eric.
Yeah.
He's been scribbling.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I saw you taking notes. I was wondering.
Some of these questions might seem, they might seem random, but also we have the title of your podcast, This Cool Stripper Chick.
Oh,
This cool stripper chick. Wow.
Is the title of your podcast.
Oh, God.
So
that'll actually grab people. That'll get viewers. That's the headline people go to.
Attraction rather than promotion.
There you go. 100%. Sex sells.
So I have a few questions about, obviously, the methadone and with maintenance. I was on maintenance for, at the longest period in time, I think I was on maintenance for a little over 2 years. So one question I always, have interest in with asking people, and this is more just kind of a physiological question, is, how long did your pause last when you got off the methadone on January 11th? Your post-acute withdrawal syndrome.
Oh my God. At least 6 months, I'd say. That was the rough end of it. And I'm talking excessive sweating through sweatshirts, not being able to sit still, maybe sleeping for an hour, in between 12, just kind of laying there holy shit, I should be sleeping, but I can't for whatever reason. I'm one of the lucky ones because I didn't get a lot of the body stuff. I know a lot of people say that they have leg cramps and, muscle spasms. And I didn't really necessarily get that, but yeah, it was a solid, I'd say 6 to 9 months after that last dose, or refusing that last dose, that I was through the woods and started to get maybe 6 hours of sleep at a time. Even eating, I only wanted to eat really bad foods that were really sugary foods, or, kind of carbs. I don't know, it was the only thing I had a taste for. My taste buds are
carbs and sugar.
Yeah. And coffee, of course. But so I'd say definitely 6 to 9 months.
Okay. So continue with the maintenance, and since you were in recovery while on maintenance, what is your opinion of people who are on maintenance being active in a recovery setting?
You are welcome, right? I mean, without a shadow of doubt, you are welcome. And, what people say is mostly their opinions. And I think that a lot of people have a lot of fear, or they're not educated around, it's not, especially being in a recovery setting, it's not really talked about a lot. There's a lot of miscommunication and judgment about it. There's a lot of people who, it's funny because because I didn't tell anybody that I was on it. So I celebrated a year of hey, I have been fully clean for a year, and look at me. And I hadn't, because it was only a 6 month period. And when I finally started to tell some people who had been helping me, hey, I really only have 6 months because I was on methadone. A lot of people gave me a lot of shit for it and were oh, I can't believe you did that, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of people who had people that I really looked up to, they were we all were on it when we first came around, but nobody talks about it. Yeah. It's not talked about a lot.
Taboo for sure.
It definitely is. And a couple people that I did open up to gave me some really shitty responses to being on it. So that's why I kind of didn't talk about it. But if somebody's out there and they're on whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You are welcome. You are more than welcome to still participate. And if anybody tells you otherwise, F them. Seriously. Yeah. So they're just not your people, and that's okay.
Let's see. So, okay, when you got off of maintenance, and you mentioned addiction manifesting itself in other ways, what were some of those ways that it manifested itself?
I think, I think it goes back to a lot of those core issues that I had before the drugs that I think maybe might have led sex, right? Acting out and wanting sexual attention and even being kind of promiscuous or being in these toxic relationships that I just knew were going nowhere and maybe could become really detrimental to my mental health, maybe even my well-being, but fully showing up for them, just because that's all I knew. Also, drinking excessive amounts of caffeine and just
Red Bull maintenance.
Yeah, right. And just smoking cigarettes it's going out of style and shopping, anything that really gossiping about people, anything that could really still get me outside of myself, and not allow me to look at myself. I just want to distract myself with anything so that way I don't have to look at me and I don't have to really see what's going on with me and really get vulnerable. Let me just hide behind these things for a little bit. And, some of them I've gotten better with, but, I still, for years, when I was all fucked up and I still felt well, I'm better than you. I used to hide behind the shit that I owned, right? And I say that loosely because I ain't own any of that shit. Because when I left that dude's house, all that shit stayed, But I used to think that because I had name brand stuff and because I had a lot of money in my pocket, I was good. So I still can kind of identify with what I own as who I am. And that was one of the ways that acting out without drugs, I not living beyond my means, but thinking that I needed something in order to be a better person. But the gossiping though, it
was fun for a while. Yeah.
Until it gets painful and you're God, why am I doing this? I actually kind of like that person.
Yeah. And then, after you're done, you just feel dirty about yourself. Yeah. I'm a dick.
Yeah. Or the weird sexual behavior. Yeah. Just, the toxic relationship looking weird. Back. Yeah. Oh my God, I showed up for that.
Yeah. I volunteered for that.
Yeah. Over and over and over.
Yeah. Because that's the realization I had on the other hand of the whole victim complex is wait a minute. No, I wasn't a victim. I was a volunteer. Yeah. I volunteered for all that misery.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned, now this is something when I first came into recovery, whenever, I had a lot of difficulty with creating the network and kind of relinquishing past friends. Did you find a lot of difficulty, at least in initially creating a network or finding, because when I first came to recovery, I made some bad decisions with, who to kind of connect myself with, which kind of caused problems. But did you have any issues with kind of, that?
One person definitely sticks out, just because that was that toxic relationship that I decided to get into. But I was really lucky. I kind of came in at a point where there was a lot of women that were my age that had maybe been established in that community for a year or two, and they had done some work on themselves. And I kind of through guidance, because I always was oh, I'm gonna go talk to these guys over here, fuck these women, I don't like girls, we don't get along. So it was kind of it wasn't hard, but it wasn't easy. I would like stand on the outskirts and just kind of like listen and then laugh with like a joke that was said, trying to like, you know, like be like, I knew I was the odd man out, but just still trying to be like a part of, until finally just one day, like one of them just kind of took me under their wing and was like, hey, like you're with us, you know? But like, and letting go, as far as like letting go of some of those people, I had no problem with it because honestly, I had no friends towards, I had people I got high with, and most of them were gone. They were either dead or in jail. A couple of them have moved out of the state just because, you know, we love a good geographical change, because it's not me, it's this place. So it was really, you know, I think the hardest thing for me was not talking to the person that enabled me the most, you know, because that was like, because I had a lot of guilt and I had a lot of shame, and I kind of portrayed an image to this person, and I felt like I owed it to them to still participate until like one day someone was like, no, like they made that decision and they probably knew, you know, good and well, like that it wasn't going anywhere. So, but that was hard because I felt a lot of guilt and I felt a lot of shame. You know, I felt really, really bad, you know, for using someone to that extent. Because honestly, that's what it was. I just used that person. Like they were they were a game, or they were like, you know, something that could be used.
They were a means to an end.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was kind of hard. But other than that, like I had no one that was left. Everybody was either in jail. There was like a couple people that like I used to, like hang out with, or like I used to, because I always drove, so I was always like the girl that would drive the dude to get the shit so I could get my shit, and then like, you know, I would drive him around so he could like sell his shit and he could give me shit. So, you know, there was a couple, because like even though it's like fucked up and like, you know, we both want something out of it, like he's using me for a ride and I'm using him for drugs, like we spent a lot of time together, and like you spend time with someone, you build a relationship with them. So that was kind of hard, and I did miss, like there were some quote unquote good times, right? Like the one time that like nobody had anything and like I had no option but to smoke weed, and I like, you know, it wasn't like horrible, because, you know, weed sometimes is fun. But like, yeah, I did. Sometimes it was then, but, you know, it never stayed fun for very long. Let me clarify. But yeah, so like letting go of some of those people were hard. Letting go of some of my old like customers are kind of hard, especially in like early recovery when I was working for like $7.25 an hour, and I'm like, son of a bitch, like I can make like $500 in like 15 minutes, you know, but I just would share about it. I'd share about it with somebody. And I knew that anything that I did or anything that I associated with old people for, like there was like going to be a consequence. Like it wasn't like here, just take this $1,000 and I wish you well. Like, no, like that shit had a whole bunch of other shit that came with it that I wasn't willing to participate in. So.
Okay. And I feel like that struggle really like develops a lot of character too. You get to learn a lot about yourself earning $7.25.
Yeah.
Like, $7.25. It sucks.
Humble. Yeah, that was hard. But like I was just grateful. I just kept saying like, you know, at least I have a job, and at least I don't have to do a bunch of shit that I don't want to do for it. So.
Okay. And then one last question. Now you said you went to private school. Would that be Catholic school?
I actually went to a Presbyterian school, I believe it was, and then I went to Catholic school for middle school. Yeah.
Okay. So something that is always like beyond me is the higher power thing. And what I like with like, so the Presbyterian and then Catholic, those are different, right?
Yes.
So in choosing a higher power in recovery, did those two, situations help motivate you to choose in one way or another in choosing a higher power?
You know, I have to say I didn't really, like neither of them really did. So being exposed, like my mom's Christian, right? I grew up in the city. So like my mom and my dad weren't going to send me to like a city school. Like, no offense, Baltimore City, but your schools are shit. So thankfully, like, my parents were like, okay, so they just kind of sent me to.
You got to say it like it is.
I'm moving out of the city right now. So
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I feel bad because I'm like, God, nobody pays taxes, so the schools suck, but like, whatever. Anyway.
The schools are like a 3.
That's like a different, they're like a 1.5 in some of the places that I grew up. Yeah, I mean, they're like rough. So like, you know, my parents just kind of sent me to any school that would kind of take us, or that they could afford, you know, because there was 3 of us. But I also had like really awesome parents. Like, my mom's Christian, and my grandma would always say she's a recovering Catholic. And, you know, she grew up in like a Jewish community. She grew up in Pimlico back in the day. So like a lot of her friends were Jewish, and like I was just exposed to a lot of different, and like I have a great aunt that's a nun, you know, so like I had like a lot of different
cool
exposures of
something today.
Different, of different. I almost said her name. Yeah, she's a nun, and you know what? She struggles with overeating. She goes. So anyway, so it's nobody's exempt, but I had a lot of like exposure to different kinds of higher powers and different ways of practicing faith, I guess. And my parents were like super cool because like my dad's kind of an atheist. He doesn't really like believe in anything. My mom's kind of like a holy roller, like, oh my God, Jesus, you know, like it's about Jesus. Yeah. So like I kind of had 2 extremes, and both of my parents encouraged me to kind of at a young age to find out what I believed in. And I remember I went to the library and I got out books because, like I said, I was a dork, right, when I was a kid. I got out books about different religions, and I told my mom I was either Jewish or a Buddhist, and she told me I definitely wasn't Jewish because that wasn't how that worked. But you know, so I already knew that like, I could pick a God that was whatever I wanted it to be. And I had already had a God that was kind of like whatever I had wanted it to be. And, you know, for a long time, I wanted it to be the person that fucked me up, right? Because it couldn't have been my doing, right? I like blamed God.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, God made me this way.
And
that
like contentious spiritual relationship.
Yeah, like, God, why did you do this to me? And like anything bad that happened, it was God. So like, but when I came to like choose my higher power, for me, it was just like something as simple as like, you know, looking at like the world as it is, right? And like, no matter how many drugs I used, like the sun always came up, right? Like no matter how much money I spent on whatever I was doing, like I could not stop the sun from coming up, and like I couldn't change the seasons from happening. So like that like energy or that like force, like that power far greater than I am was kind of like my God. And I mean, it kind of been my God, I guess you could say, for years to be, because I always knew when I was using, like, oh shit, the sun's coming up, time for me to get my ass inside. So
I hate that feeling.
Yes. Oh my God. The birds.
Vampires.
Birds. God, I fucking hate those birds.
God. The other day I was leaving work like really early in the morning, and like I hadn't felt that feeling of like that dirty, that like scuzzy, you know, like I don't even know how to like describe it, but like the shame. And like I was leaving work and it was early morning, and like the birds were chirping and the sun was coming out, and I was like, wow, this is like actually kind of nice. You know? The first time probably I'd ever had that thought. So
can I answer that question as well?
Yeah.
Am I allowed? No,
you're allowed.
Of course. Thank you. I was raising my hand, by the way. As far as like spirituality and like recovery, a couple big things like really stood out to me. Really like just remaining open-minded to the possibilities. Like you never know what's going to come down the pike, because I firmly believe any spirituality, any higher power, any quote unquote God relationship is going to evolve as we evolve and as we experience different things in life. So I've always just tried to remain very open-minded to whatever speaks to me personally. And the other thing that probably this is one of like my favorite like spiritual quotes is just never apologize for your beliefs. Like no matter what you believe in, like believe in it. Like don't necessarily throw it in other people's faces, but as long as it matters to you and it's positive and loving and caring and it benefits your life and it's not hurting anybody else, then don't apologize for it. Like just live your spirituality your way and that's all you have to do. You don't have to explain it to anybody. Honestly, it's none of their business. It's your business and your higher power or lack of higher power or whatever you want it to be. Let it be that, and don't feel like you have to explain yourself to anybody, because it's bottom line. It's none of their business. It's about you and your spirit and whatever you find that works for you. And that's all I got to say about the whole spiritual higher power thing. Anything else?
No. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. Do you have any questions?
Do I have any questions? No. I do have one statement. You talked about how marijuana is becoming legal and people are buying it in stores, and I kind of have a resentment to kids nowadays. I'm you don't know. Probably my fictitious grandchildren that don't exist now are gonna be what do you mean, Grandpa? I'd be I had to meet strangers in their cars in seedy neighborhoods. They're you mean you didn't just go down to the shop? No, I didn't go down to the shop with my fucking card. That didn't work like that back then. I'm gonna really date myself, and I had to go get some shitty swag from somebody down the fucking street.
Some downtown
brown, the Baltimore Brown. It just went from there. I had to find the different goofy names of whatever strain was on
Northern Lights was big.
Yeah, Northern Lights and
Nugs. Wait, what was
Kind Bud?
That's what I was trying to think of that the other day. Kind Bud.
Yeah. I remember
it was the between Nugs and swag.
Yeah.
And
swag.
It was
middies.
swags and middies and kind of kids. They're spoiled. They're spoiled with all their shit.
This is a hybrid between an indica 60% and
you're going to a fucking weedologist nowadays. These people have degrees in weed, and I'm what the fuck?
I got mine from some guy named Black or D. Whoever.
Yeah,
down Appleton Street.
Yeah, my dude was Breezy. Dude's name was Breezy. I don't know what his name is to this day. It's just Breezy. I was what's up, Breezy? And that was it. There was dumbass conversations trying to have coded messages on my brick Nokia phone. Hey man, you good? Do you have the 20-piece chicken nuggets? Kids are not going to know the struggle, and it pisses me off.
Oriole tickets to represent ounces.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Going to Ocean City.
Yeah, going to Ocean's, and all the...
Or buying the bag, spending all day to buy it, only for it to be stems and seeds. You're never going to have that.
And then you always have that one guy who had the specialty bags that he got from it. It had I don't know, alien faces on it or something, Cash Money symbols. And you're oh, this guy's swag. No. I don't know. That just bugged me. And the kids nowadays are spoiled.
Or the, feeling like you're a criminal, right? Nowadays, people aren't going to have that.
Dude, yeah, Colorado, they're a park bench. Hey, what's up?
You want to hit those?
Yeah. What up, officer? It's cool. It's the good shit. Yeah. So that bothered me. But no, I got nothing else. I thought you did a great job. I appreciate you coming and sharing with us.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'd like to thank our guest, Allie, one more time for joining us today. I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice. All right.
I feel like we needed an applause. Or something.
We need Eric work on a clap.
I'll get a soundboard.
We need a clap track.
Get some sound
we need a clap track in here.
Yeah.
And if we could get if we could afford the peanut gallery from the Muppets, that would be great. Just the two old guys. No.
Oh, those guys. Yeah.
That'd be great.
I don't think.
No, we can't afford
feel
that.
like paying for that.
Maybe we can make our own.
We could make our own. All right. Well, thank you, Allie, for joining us today. And here at Podcast Recovery, we're aiming to expand the scope of support for recovering addicts. Accessibility and convenience of helpful services is paramount to combating addiction. We work to bring the message of recovery to every addict wherever and whenever it is needed. We believe that a powerful voice of recovery should be obtainable, practical, and at the touch of a button. Every addict deserves to hear a message of hope, and Podcast Recovery is here to provide it. So, thank you for joining us today. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check out our website, podcastrecovery.com, and we will see you next time. Thanks very much.